Hi, everybody. It's Charisse here. And I love how, like, sometimes I'm like full on glam when I do videos and podcast episodes. And then other times I look like this. Like, I just basically threw on the most comfortable dress that I have, like, no makeup, whatever. I'm not going to be one of those girls that apologizes for, like, looking how I look. Like, this is what I look like. Not going to apologize for it. Um, but I also don't think you need to like show up in full on glam all the time. Like show up as you really are. It's fine. Anyway, I want to talk today about a topic that is a big topic. It's a heavy topic. It's the topic of forgiveness. And I have had a very interesting relationship with forgiveness. um, and I feel like I don't know, it's like on one hand, forgiveness is a really easy concept when we think about it, like, or maybe when we don't think about it, it's a really simple concept. But then on the other hand, it's a really, really difficult concept. Like it's a really difficult thing, but it's also a really easy thing. It's a really natural thing, but then it's also really like, really tough. So I kind of want to discuss that and kind of my own relationship with forgiveness and kind of my thoughts, what I used to think about forgiveness and kind of now where I am a little more with forgiveness. I do want to say I'm going to briefly touch on, so possible trigger warning, I'm going to briefly touch on some past sexual abuse, but I'm not going into any details about it. But I do just want to throw that out there. But yeah, no like details or whatever. Okay, so I used to think that forgiveness was kind of a bunch of crap to an extent. I kind of thought, like, yeah, some things can be forgiven, and then other things, like, there's no way that it can be forgiven. There's just some atrocities that people do that just are really awful, and it's like they don't deserve to be forgiven. And then I'd always heard all of those, well, you're not forgiving for them, you're forgiving them for yourself, and just because you forgive someone doesn't mean that you condone what they did. And I do agree with all of that, but that's one of those things where that's like it's easier said than done. It's so much easier said than done. And I think a lot of the time for us to really accept forgiveness or embrace the term of forgiveness and the action of forgiveness, we kind of need to think of it from a different way. So basically, I always thought, okay, yeah, there's some things that you can forgive, and then other things are just too much to forgive. Like, for instance, the person who sexually abused me as a child, I was always like, there's no way in hell I'm going to forgive that person. Like, they don't deserve my forgiveness. What they did was just too ridiculous that it doesn't deserve any sort of forgiveness. I can release them, I can release their energy or whatever, but I'm never going to forgive that person. And then there's other things that people go through that they're like, I could never forgive that person. And that's where it kind of comes into where all these little cliche quotes come in, is holding on to anger is like drinking poison and hoping that the other person dies from it or gets sick or whatever. But forgiveness sometimes is a really hard concept, especially when we are really hurt. It doesn't have to necessarily even be sexual abuse. I mean, it could just be like a breakup that you went through with somebody. It could be, you feeling like you got wrongfully fired from a job and you don't want to forgive your boss. It could be something like that your parents did that you have a hard time forgiving. It could be something you yourself did in your past, because that's a whole other angle to this, is self-forgiveness. It could even be somebody that you don't know personally. Like it could be, a politician or something, or somebody that you read about in the news, that you maybe they stir up a lot of emotions for you and you kind of feel like, oh, maybe I should, I don't know. I don't know if anybody else feels that way sometimes, that you kind of feel like like deserving forgiveness of people that you don't even know. Anyway, what made me switch my mindset of some people don't deserve forgiveness while some people, it's okay to forgive them. I had actually taken a program with Sierra Rubin, and she did weekly live video calls with the group. And one of the weeks, I can't even remember exactly what the topic of that week was per se, but it was, she was talking, and she was basically talking about how we are all literally connected, how all of our energy is intertwined with one another, and how even if there's people that do things that we don't agree with, or that we could never see ourselves doing, or that we think is just awful, our energy is still intertwined. Not to say that we are going to go out and do whatever the person who we, the thing that we're looking at and the person we're looking at of like, oh, that's a horrible action, that's a horrible person. Not to say that because our energy is intertwined that we are then going to go out and do that, and not to say that it is giving them an excuse like, oh, well, our energy is connected, so it's fine. It's just the point of is, this is a really hard concept, and I wish I had that recording of Sierra talking about this, because she had worded it just so beautifully about all of our energy being intertwined, and how really when we're holding on to these feelings, this hate, this sadness, this anger, this frustration, this betrayal, this whatever feelings that we're holding on to that we don't want to forgive the other person for, we really are just kind of punishing ourselves. We really are. Because whether we forgive the person or not, it's not going to change them at all. It's not going to change the event. It's not going to change anything. But what it does start to change is change ourselves. And that's where I think the quote of, we don't forgive others for them, we forgive them for ourselves. I think that's kind of where it comes into. Because no matter what, even until we forgive that person, we're still really holding on to that. And it's almost like they still have that power over us. And we are all connected. And when one person feels a hurt, another person feels a hurt. And so when we offer that forgiveness, that moment of forgiveness, and we offer that, even if it's a small moment of healing, because our energy is all intertwined, even if that person's unaware of it, we are giving sort of that healing to that person. Because when we think about it, and this isn't, again, condoning bad behaviors or horrible actions of others. This is no way condoning it. But when people do these awful things, it's usually coming from a place of hurt and fear, and it's not coming from a good place from that person. And again, I'm not condoning it at all, because there's plenty of people who have so much hurt and go through so many horrible things in their lives, and they don't turn around and do these awful actions onto others. So that's not an excuse for bad behavior, but it does kind of give a glimpse into like, well, where is that person's mindset? Where is that person's energy at for them to be able to create these acts? And it was during this call with Sierra that just all of a sudden I realized, I'm like, I forgive this guy. Like, holy crap. And it wasn't this big, like, oh, like angel singing moment. It wasn't this like miraculous. It was almost like that was it. Like I realized like, oh, I forgive him. Because it made me, I thought about it with all of our energy being connected, and thought about how we are all human, and we are all dealing with our own energy and pasts and histories and things and thoughts and feelings. When I thought of it that way, I started to actually kind of feel bad for him. And it's weird because which I'm going to get into this too, what happens after the forgiveness, because I think we go so much into the forgiveness and then like, that's it. No, there's aftermath that happens with the forgiveness, which I'm going to get into. That's, I think, really when the major stuff happens, is the moment after the forgiveness. But so yeah, I didn't, it's not because I forgave him, I was like, oh, it's cool, it's fine, I don't care that he, did these things to me, whatever, it's fine. But it was me just being like, wow, like how sad for him to be in such a, I'm trying not to cuss, such a effed up mindset and energy space and hurt to do that to a child. Like what a messed up mindset and being you are to do that, to not only have those thoughts and those feelings and those urges, but then to act out on it. Like, wow. Like I really, when I kind of flipped that mindset of just being like, this is this person that did this to me, and I kind of thought of like, wow, what was going on with this person? It kind of made it a lot easier to forgive him, because it was more like, wow, dude, like you are messed up. And that is a sad, sad way to be. And like, I forgive you like that. I mean, wow. And still it's just crazy to me to think that like you are so messed up that you would act out on these things and do what you did. Like, what the hell? It baffles my mind. And that's what I think of when there's all sorts of, you read news stories and things of horrible things happening, of people doing awful things. And that's just kind of where I think of it now as, I mean, yeah, I still get pissed off about things. Like, that's normal to get pissed off and get upset and be hurt and be sad and be scared and be disgusted. Like, you can have those emotions while still being able to forgive somebody. Forgiveness, I don't think, is completely denying and ignoring all of the other feelings that come with it. It's not like, oh, forgiveness and now I feel great and it's okay. Like, it's not about that. You can forgive somebody while simultaneously like being disgusted. And that's what nobody had told me before. Everybody's like, oh, well, you just need to forgive and you'll feel better and you'll be able to start healing and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, but I'm still pissed off about it. Like, I'm still mad. There's still things that I like need to heal about this. There's still some feelings I feel about this. That's okay. You can still feel how you feel about the situation or about the person and still forgive them. It's just kind of releasing that. It's kind of just releasing, I can't think of a word for it, but just releasing that element of energy and kind of giving it back to the person. And you know what? I forgive you. I'm sending you with some white light off on your own. Like, it's really shitty what you did. I don't agree with it. I'm still hurt and I'm still dealing with some, the ramifications of it. But you know what? I forgive you because you clearly are in a horrible space. You clearly need to do some work on your own. I forgive you. I'm releasing you. So now I can work on my own stuff. Because when we hold on to all of those feelings and we don't offer that forgiveness and have that forgiveness, we're still holding on to all of their stuff. So basically, by me not forgiving this man, it's almost like, because again, remember, all of our energy is intertwined. It's almost like I was taking on everything of his. So not only was I dealing with my own feelings and emotions from this incident, I was taking on all of the stuff that he brought into that incident. So all of his own, self-hatred, which I can only assume, self-hatred and past hurts and all of his garbage that he brought into that situation to do that act. It's like I was taking that on as well. And that's the same, if you're not wanting to forgive somebody because they broke up with you and they broke your heart, you're holding on to that unforgiveness. You're holding on to your own hurts from that relationship. And you're also holding on to all of the garbage that individual brought into your relationship. So by forgiving somebody, you're kind of cutting it off. You're kind of doing a cord cutting, an energetic cord cutting, a severing of, okay, I forgive you. That's all your stuff now. You work on your own crap, whether you are consciously aware of this forgiveness or not. I'm going to now start to do my own version of healing my own stuff rather than holding on to your stuff as well. So with that forgiveness, that's kind of what it was for me. I forgave him, and it's like, okay, your stuff is your stuff now. Now I am left to deal with what your actions caused for me in my life. But we can do some healing around different things without forgiving, because I'd definitely done some healing on this subject matter before I'd given this forgiveness. But I don't think that we can really fully, completely heal until we have that forgiveness, because it really is that ultimate, like, cutting the tie between you and that individual, or you and that experience. For instance, if you're forgiving yourself, obviously if you're forgiving yourself, you can't cut yourself off from yourself, but you can cut kind of yourself off from that incident and from that person that you were in that incident, with self-forgiveness. I feel like I'm kind of rambling. So I'm really hoping that this is all making sense for you guys. So, okay. So forgiving a person, it definitely does not mean that you are okay with what they did. Forgiving the person doesn't mean that you're suddenly now not upset about what happened and that like everything's rosy. Like, no, you can still feel the way that you feel. That is okay. Basically, forgiveness is just saying like, wow, okay, I'm acknowledging that you're another human being who has feelings and energies and has past experiences and has your own stuff. I'm acknowledging that. And I'm forgiving you because I don't know where you were when this incident happened. I don't know where you were mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all of that. I'm forgiving that so I can release you completely to deal with your own stuff. So I can work on my own. And that's where it sometimes seems easier said than done. Depending on the situation, depending on who was involved, depending on the feelings involved and everything, some things may be a lot more difficult to forgive than others. And forgiveness cannot be rushed. I want to say that you don't ever feel guilty for holding on to not being able to forgive. I mean, my God, it took me like 30 years of my life to finally be able to forgive this person. So forgiveness has no timeline. Like, it's not like, oh, this happened a week ago, you need to forgive this person and move on by now. Like, no, there's no time limit. So you really do have to be ready and be prepared for it not to be. I always thought the moment I forgave this person that it would be this like life-altering moment. And it was just like, I mean, I did feel so much lighter. That was the kind of the crazy part is as soon as I realized like, wow, I forgive him, I definitely felt much lighter. And I feel like that was the energetic cutting. That was the moment that the energetic cord that I'd had attached with this person was severed. And I finally felt like, wow, like I'm not holding on to your stuff too. Like I just released all of your crap that I was holding on my shoulders too. And I gave it back to you. And like, wow. So I did feel lighter, but it wasn't this like, life is great now. Like, so be prepared for that when you do finally offer forgiveness. It may not necessarily be some like life-altering moment. It may just be a little small, like you feel a little lighter. Maybe you start to sleep a little easier. It's going to look different for everybody, different types of forgiveness, who you're forgiving. It's going to all be different. So basically what happens after the forgiveness, this is the phase that I'm in. So this actually was a year ago that I forgave this person. And like I said, before I did the forgiveness, I had done some work on it. I've been to therapy a bunch, which every time I mention therapy, I got to throw in, if you're even considering, should I go to therapy? You should go to therapy. Therapy is amazing. Therapy is great. If you've been before and you didn't love your counselor, go find another one and keep going until you find one that you connect with. Mental health, y'all. It's important. Go to therapy. But so yeah, I had done some of the healing and therapy with my own self-work, with crystals and meditation and journaling and things. So this was a year ago. I'm just now realizing how much I still have to work on this. That was my dog, by the way, that you just heard. I still have so much healing to do around this, like so much in my womb space, in my pelvic region, my sacral chakra. I have so much work to still do. I am realizing now. But it's on a whole different level. It's on such a deeper level than I'd ever experienced before. Like I thought the healing that I'd done was awesome, and it was. But I'm realizing now that there's even more deep healing that needs to occur that I didn't have access to. It's almost like, I kind of think of it as like layers. So when you're trying to do some healing around an incident, it's like you do the healing, and then you kind of get to a point where you can't really do a whole hell of a lot more healing until you get past that forgiveness. So it's almost, I'm picturing it like a layer of dirt, and you're digging, and then suddenly you get to like a layer of stone, which is where you need to forgive. And it's hard to get through that, right? You're digging with your shovel through the dirt, and it's like, okay, I'm doing this. Maybe some of the dirt is a little more tough than others, but you're like, all right, I'm making progress. I'm digging my hole. I'm doing my healing. And then you're like, what the hell is this? And you're hitting this like bed of rock, and it's really freaking hard to get through. Just like forgiveness. Forgiveness is so hard to get through sometimes. But you keep chiseling away, and finally you break through. And you break through that forgiveness. You forgive and you release. And then you can get to the really deep, good stuff, the really deep healing. And that's kind of where I'm at right now with all of this. And it's not just the healing that I need to do on this one incident from when I was a child. It's kind of like the domino effect. It's like I'm seeing all of like what had happened, which I do still need to do a little bit of healing around that. But now it's like a lot of choices that I made throughout life and a lot of feelings and energy that I've held throughout life stem from that one incident. So now I'm kind of realizing I'm needing to heal a lot of different points of my life, a lot of energetic stuff throughout my life. And so that's something that is to be aware of after the forgiveness is, you know, you may be forgiving that person for that one incident, but there's a lot of stuff. I mean, it's like throwing a stone in a pond with the ripple. It creates a ripple effect. So one incident that we're forgiving somebody for, that's great and that's awesome and it needs to happen. But then there's probably a lot of things that happened after that one core incident. Even in relationships, you know, I mean, maybe something happened in your relationship. Maybe it was a trust thing. And so your significant other cheated on you. And so you need to forgive them for that. Well, now you have all of these other things that have stemmed off of that one cheating incident. You know, maybe now you have some trust issues, some self-confidence issues, because you might be thinking like, well, why'd they cheat on me? What's wrong with me? I can't trust people. Excuse me. So there's all different kinds of things that need to happen. And I feel like a lot of those can't really be acknowledged or accessed or healed until we have that moment of forgiveness. So I just want to, and I just wanted to share that. I felt like this really needed to be talked about. I actually was falling asleep last night and this came into my mind. And then today when I was meditating, it came into my mind again. I'm like, okay, I have to do this. Let's talk about this. So yeah, just to recap, forgiveness doesn't mean that you're washing away and ignoring all of the feelings that you hold on to that incident. Forgiveness really doesn't mean that you are okay with what the person did. It's more about just acknowledging that they're another human being just like you with their own set of stuff that they brought to the situation, and you're forgiving them just on a human level, on an energetic level, you're forgiving them. And you're sending them away. Think of forgiveness kind of as a way of like packaging up the person and all of their stuff, and you're moving it out of your life so then you can focus on yourself. Let's talk really quick about self-forgiveness. So I touched briefly on, sometimes there's things that we need to forgive ourselves for, things that we've done in our past, which for me, some of these things stem from this one core incident with this stupid man, and that's okay. I've forgiven him, but I still refer to him as like a stupid man, because I'm still annoyed about it and like pissed off about it, which I'm working on. So you can have those feelings with having forgave somebody. Anyway, so there's some things in my past that I need to forgive myself for. And with that, it's kind of the same idea of like packaging up the past energy and like giving it back to your past self. That's such a weird dynamic to think of, because if you think about it, the person you are now is not the person you were in the past. I mean, hell, the person you are today is not the person you were yesterday. So when you're needing to forgive something from yourself from the past, it does kind of help to think of it. I mean, it's still you, but it's a different you. So you can still do that forgiveness and like releasing, okay, I'm going to give past you your issues that I'm still carrying around. So that way it's kind of like separating your past issues from your current you. So that way you can kind of, two different things. Number one, you can look at the situation completely as you are today, rather than looking at the situation still holding on to your views and your feelings of the past you. So that way you can kind of separate that and look at it. Okay, well, how do I feel about this situation now? How would the Charisse now think of this situation? What would the Sharice now say to this past Sharice? What words of encouragement? Or, you know, it's sometimes easier then to see like, wow, I was really hurting in that situation. And that's why I did what I did. And again, I'm not condoning it. I'm not saying like, that's a good excuse for your bad behavior, Sharice, but it kind of gives you a reason of like, oh, wow, that's where you were coming from. I feel really sorry for you. You were really hurting in that situation, and that's why you acted badly. I forgive you for that. I hope that you can heal those past issues. So then that gives you, it kind of separates yourself a little bit from yourself. So you're then able to kind of, it's almost like parenting ourselves. We're then able to kind of be a supportive friend to help our past self through these issues, because we're probably coming at it from more of like a little bit of a healthier angle now. To forgive ourselves. And once we forgive ourselves too, we're then able to, when we're still beating ourselves up about something and not forgiving ourselves for it, we're not able to really heal from the why did we do that? Why did we do what we're needing to forgive? Because we're still holding on to the, I can't believe I did that. I'm such a horrible person. I can't believe that I acted that way or said those things or did this thing. But when we offer that forgiveness, it's like, okay, that incident is over. It's done with. I can't change it. How can I heal from that? What lesson can I learn from it? What was I going through in that moment? What can we heal from that? So it really gives yourself a chance to be proactive. Forgiveness does that to you. It opens that doorway for you to really embrace change and healing. Oh, that was my dog. Like, what does that sound? But it really just gives you a chance to embrace the healing. And it gives you that, like, that breather in that moment of being like, okay, how can I tackle this in a productive way? Because too, when we're not forgiving, we're really living in the past, and we're really living still in that moment. And when we're living in that moment, we can't possibly move on from that moment and heal from it and grow from it, because we're still stuck stagnant in that moment. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say. I hope that this has kind of helped give you a different idea or view of forgiveness, or a different way to think or feel about forgiveness. And again, I'm not saying, like, I'm sure I may have some people disagreeing with me, and I was one of them. I remember actually on Periscope, I was talking about forgiveness like 2 years ago, and there was a girl kind of arguing with me, because I'm like, no, some things don't deserve forgiveness, blah, blah, blah. So if you're in that space, that's cool. And sometimes I'm kind of in that space too. You know, there really are some things that you're like, some things do not deserve forgiveness. But it really is, it's more just forgiving so you can then productively deal with your feelings on that matter. It's not saying like, oh, it's okay, I'm giving you a pass, whatever. And again, you're allowed to feel still upset and hurt about whatever situation it is. It's just giving yourself a chance to then heal from it and be productive. So I hope that this helped. Yeah, I'll talk to all you guys later. Follow me on Instagram, ShariceWilliams.xo. And all right, I'm going to go outside because it's beautiful. Bye.